I am absolutely going to testify. I won't even say his name. He is an evil being, and it's going to pay. I think that I was just, living in this shame, living in all this sort of stuff of my past, and I wasn't able to move on. It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they love me and, just turn their back on you in a second.
Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time.
The courtroom dropped into dead silence as Diddy's calm mask slipped, his fists clenched, jaw locked, and the tension? You could feel it hit the room like a wave. The trigger, Justin Bieber's name, echoed off the walls. That was the moment. The second, Diddy lost control on day 2 of the trial. Word had just reached him. Bieber had publicly come out supporting Cassie. Security was already on alert, but no one was ready for what happened next. Even the judge froze in shock.
Do you think the person that the you of then was on a path of self-destruction?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I would have, for sure, 100%. Yeah. It would have been no bueno. It was bad. I don't know if I'd be alive, for sure. It was dark. So I'm very, very grateful to have influences in my life that have played a huge part in me seeing their relationship with Jesus and their relationship with their wives and their relationship with their kids and saying that's what I want. But I want to definitely tell my story so that if that resonates to anybody, that they can hopefully, but yeah, just protecting those moments because people take for granted encounters and
Wow! I feel violated right now. Wow.
Lean into me again. You smell amazing. How old are you?
Thank you.
How old are you?
I'm 16. I'll be 17 in like 2 weeks.
I don't ever remember smelling that good at 16. Like that was bad. Wow, look at your eyes. Look at what a beautiful...
Bieber turned 15, and it suddenly seemed that Hollywood was keen to almost initiate him. I think that's the right word. Like there was almost like this initiation that he needed to go through. So I want you to be now super uncomfortable and watch this video of an interaction between him and none other than Diddy. Take a listen.
Justin, you ever seen the movie For the Times of Their Lives? Like, where we hanging out and what we doing. We can't really disclose, but it's definitely a 15-year-old's dream. I have been given custody of him. He signed to Usher. I had legal guardianship of Usher when he did his first album. I did Usher's first album. I don't have legal guardianship of him, but for the next 48 hours, he's with me. So and we gonna go full.
Young Justin Bieber, who was signed by Usher, involved with Scooter Braun. Now all of a sudden he's being put in the hands of Diddy, who, it is true, he became the legal guardian for Usher. You can look up all of the allegations of what Diddy did. The allegations are essentially that Diddy very much initiated Usher. As we are going through these lawsuits and Diddy is in prison, we are recognizing that everybody knew. This was an open secret about what Diddy was doing. So it just begs the question, who allowed Justin Bieber to be in the presence of this man, knowing what he was up to, allegedly up to? That seems to be very clear.
Day 2 started off with an eerie calm. Diddy walked in, draped in power, top-tier legal squad at his side, confidence all over his face. But look closer, his eyes told a different story. He kept scanning the room, like expecting someone to lunge at him. Security was tighter than usual. Extra guards flanked his table, one right behind his chair, another near the aisle. It didn't feel random, almost like someone got a tip that today wasn't gonna go smooth. Then Cassie entered, and the whole courtroom shifted. She wore a sleek black dress with a white collar, nothing extravagant, yet impossible to ignore. Her friends surrounded her. Like a human shield, no security, just loyalty. The contrast hit hard. Diddy with paid muscle, Cassie with real support. Meanwhile, Diddy couldn't keep his hands off his phone. He kept checking it, scrolling, frowning, scrolling again, every time his expression darkened a little more. Eventually, one of his lawyers snatched the phone out of his hands. That's when I noticed his hands were trembling, over on the prosecution's side. Something was up. They kept whispering, passing notes, glancing at a tablet. one nod after another, like they just unlocked the case. Diddy's main attorney tried to keep him composed, whispering in his ear, putting a hand on his shoulder, but Diddy was spiraling. He shrugged the guy off. Hard! So hard. The lawyer stumbled against the table. Then, the judge walked in, and the energy in the room shifted again. She looked different from day one. Back then, cool, calm, business as usual. Today, she looked like a teacher who knows her worst student is about to act up. Her eyes went straight to Diddy. She leaned to her clerk, whispered something. He nodded and picked up the courtroom phone. What nobody realized just yet, Diddy had already seen Bieber's post. It dropped right before court, and it hit like a nuke. His team scrambled to get the phone away, but the damage was done. The bailiff called for order, and the tension spiked. Even the jury felt it. They kept glancing around, picking up on the energy. One juror's hand was shaking as she reached for water. Diddy sat frozen, leg bouncing, vein pulsing in his forehead, breaths getting deeper, faster. His lawyers tried to distract him, placing papers in front of him, but he shoved them aside. He wasn't reading anything. He wasn't hearing anyone. He was locked in, like a volcano seconds from erupting. The room could sense it, and Diddy's carefully controlled image, it was seconds from cracking apart live, in front of everyone.
Yeah, so, yeah. I just want to protect her, you know? I don't want her to lose it. I don't want her to, you know, go through anything I went through. I don't wish that upon anybody. So, yeah, if she ever needs me, I mean, just think about how young I was and so impressionable. And you have everybody telling me how awesome I am at all times, you know? And like,
It's like taking a kid and putting a kid in a room full of nothing but sweets.
Right.
And just saying, I'll be back in 2 days.
Exactly. I just want people to understand, like, the psychology behind why I potentially could have problems in my life. So.
In time, let's talk about the fact that Combs' co-defendant in a civil case, a case, by the way, that accuses him and this co-defendant, another A-lister, of rape. This guy is once again slamming the attorney behind the case, insisting that he be sanctioned for allegedly not doing his job. We're talking, of course, about Sean Carter, better known as Jay-Z, once again calling out attorney Tony Busby, calling out his character, more specifically into question, claiming that the Texas attorney's filings have, quote, substantial. Now, we've talked about this before, but basically, a civil lawsuit was filed against Sean Combs on behalf of a Jane Doe who says that she was raped by Combs and another celebrity at a home after the Video Music Awards in 2000.
While the courtroom stayed focused on the drama unfolding inside, something explosive happened outside online. Justin Bieber had just dropped a social media bomb no one saw coming, and the ripple hit that courtroom hard. Smack in the middle of trial proceedings, Bieber posted a statement backing Cassie, and it sent shockwaves through the music industry. And this wasn't just a casual thoughts and prayers post. This was deep, personal, and specific. Remember those old clips of Teen Bieber at Diddy's parties? Diddy used to call himself Bieber's mentor, his big brother. He even bragged about shaping Justin's career. So when Bieber publicly sided with Cassie, that was the ultimate betrayal, and he didn't hold back. He wrote about personally witnessing Diddy's behavior, grabbing Cassie's arm too hard at a 2015 after party, speaking over her in interviews, cutting her off mid-sentence. These weren't rumors, these were first-hand receipts. During the first recess, Bieber's posts spread like wildfire. Courthouse hallways turned into mini newsrooms. People showed each other phones, whispering. One court officer had to remind folks to silence devices before coming back in. Legal assistants were printing screenshots. Attorneys scanned them. Even jurors seemed confused by the sudden buzz. The post included an old photo of Bieber and Cassie at a music event. Both were smiling, but Cassie's eyes told a different story. Bieber's caption read, "I always respected her strength. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner." For Diddy, the timing couldn't have been worse. Bieber's 270 million followers saw it within minutes. News headlines were already breaking. This wasn't just celeb gossip anymore. This was a massive name taking a clear side in an active courtroom trial. Reporters went wild. One ran out of the courtroom to call her editor. Another typed like her life depended on it. A network reporter mouthed, "Did you see it?" across the aisle. The energy shifted. permanently. Whispers got so loud that a bailiff had to hush the room. Some looked straight at Diddy, wondering if he'd seen it yet. Others stared at Cassie, who sat there in perfect composure, unshaken. What made Bieber's post so powerful was the exact language he used. He called Cassie brave and truthful and wrote, "There were behaviors I witnessed that troubled me for years, but I didn't understand the pattern back then." He even admitted his own guilt. "I'm disappointed in myself for not seeing the control dynamics that now seem so obvious." Diddy's lawyer saw the post first. He immediately tried damage control, physically blocking Diddy's line of sight to another lawyer's phone. He whispered frantically to get all devices off the table, but it was too late. Someone had already shown it to Diddy. His eyes locked on the screen. They widened, and right there, his entire face changed, from shock to rage, and everyone nearby felt it.
18 years old, and I should mention he was signed by Usher to a label that was owned jointly by both Scooter Braun and Usher, and he was considered Usher's protege. He has been described Usher as his mentor. Justin Bieber, is continuing the purge. He has now moved to his original mentor. So this is a very big story, and the reason why we should discuss this and we should not diminish what is happening, it's not celebrity drama. This is actually the fall of Babylon that we are witnessing, Hollywood Babylon, that is. He did an interview back in 2020 with Zane Lowe. I think this was on Apple Music. And he was speaking about another young artist that was coming up, Billie Eilish, and Eilish. And he was basically speaking about how he wanted to protect her because she was now another young person, a rising artist in the industry. And sort of out of nowhere, he became quite overcome with emotion. Take a listen.
Yeah, I definitely feel protective of her. It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they love me and, just turn their back on you in a second. So yeah, it's hard because I want her to know that, she can count on me. But at the end of the day, I'm never gonna force myself to be in a relationship with her. It has to be natural, right? So I just kind of, let her do her thing, and if she ever needs me, I'm gonna be here for her. But yeah, just protecting those moments because people take for granted.
I'm not even kidding. Watching that clip makes me emotional because he is saying so much without really saying anything. Protect Billie Eilish from what? From who?
When Diddy saw Bieber's post, his entire expression changed, like someone had flipped a switch. First came shock. His eyes went wide, and his mouth literally dropped open. Then came the realization of betrayal. It hit him hard, but what followed was the real warning sign: rage. His nostrils flared, and his jaw locked so tight it looked like he might snap his own teeth. One woman, seated a few rows back, later told reporters she saw Diddy's hands shaking uncontrollably. When his lawyer handed him some documents here, couldn't even grip them. They just slipped through his fingers and scattered to the floor. That's when the whole courtroom really started paying attention. Then Diddy suddenly stood up, and this wasn't some casual stretch. It was sharp, fast, and full of tension. The bailiff, who had been monitoring him closely all morning, instantly stepped forward. You could tell this wasn't their first time dealing with someone on the verge of losing it in court. Then Diddy said something loud enough for the front rows to hear. "After everything I did for that kid, loyalty doesn't mean a thing anymore." And then something about consequences, enough for his lawyer to immediately grab his arm and pull him back down into his seat. He leaned in and whispered something urgently, but Diddy shook his head, clearly not calming down. His breathing was heavy, like someone who had just sprinted upstairs. Courtroom sketch artists later said it was the most intense face they'd ever drawn. One even claimed that in over a decade of covering trials, she'd never seen someone look that unhinged. The clenched jaw, bulging eyes, the veins in his neck, it was all there. The prosecution didn't miss a thing. The lead prosecutor gave a subtle signal to her assistant, who quietly slipped out the side door. We later learned she was ordering in a witness earlier than planned, someone who could directly back up Bieber's claims. Meanwhile, security guards shared silent glances. Two shifted position, casually stepping closer to Diddy's table. One even unclipped something from his belt, not pulling a weapon, but definitely preparing. Diddy's whole demeanor had flipped. Earlier that morning, he was Mr. Composed, sitting tall, nodding, writing notes. Now, He was fidgeting, rubbing his face, loosening his tie like he couldn't breathe, and then came the moment that pushed everything over the edge. Diddy slammed. His hand on the table, hard. A glass of water tipped, fell, and shattered on the floor. Everyone jumped. It was loud. Then, in a whisper loud enough for court reporters to catch, Diddy said, "I'll make sure he never works in this town again." Neither of them will. His lawyer had to wrap an arm around his shoulders just to keep him seated. The judge wasn't having any of it. She slammed her gavel down and immediately called for a 15-minute recess. But that break? That gave Diddy too much time. His legal team huddled around him, their faces full of panic. Diddy just kept stewing, his anger boiling over with every passing minute. And when court resumed, Cassie returned different. She walked to the stand with confidence, head high, shoulders straight, no more looking at the floor like on day one. She stared directly at the jury and didn't even flinch when looking at Diddy. Then came the bombshell evidence. The prosecution revealed text messages no one had ever seen before. In one 2016 exchange, Diddy sent 17 back-to-back messages asking why Cassie wasn't answering. Another read, "I need to know where you are every minute" one. Text was chilling. That's the deal if you want to keep your career. The room went completely silent. You could hear the ceiling fans. Then came her testimony about Diddy's control, who she was allowed to talk to in the industry. He had a list of male artists I wasn't allowed to speak to unless he was there, she told the court. Right there into the one. Of those artists, Justin Bieber. When I asked why, he said not to question him. And when I did anyway, he grabbed my arm at the after party and whispered that I'd regret it. Cassie's voice never wavered. She spoke clearly, describing how she had been isolated, monitored, and controlled. The pattern she laid out was identical to what Bieber had shared online just moments before. Monitoring, public control, and private threats. Every detail matched perfectly, making it seem like their stories were coordinated. And yet, when she was asked if she'd spoken to Bieber recently, she responded, "I haven't spoken to him in years." When the prosecutor pressed further, asking why she didn't come forward sooner, her response cut deep. "He told me nobody would believe me. He said he controlled who worked in this industry and who didn't. I watched him make calls that ended careers. You could see the reaction from the jury. One woman wiped away tears, while an older man jotted something down and underlined it 3 times. Then came the game changer. Prosecutors played a piece of hotel security footage from 2018. The video showed Cassie trying to speak to a male artist in the lobby. Diddy appeared, put his arm around her, and led her away. The body language, it matched exactly what Cassie had just described. Diddy, already visibly shaken, leaned over to his lawyer. He whispered frantically, pointing at the screen, clearly trying to come up with an explanation. Cassie continued with incredible detail, naming specific dates, locations, and other people present. March 8, 2017 at the Standard Hotel in New York, June 22nd, 2017 at his Miami mansion, September 12, 2018 backstage at the VMAs each time she dropped a date. Diddy's lawyer flipped through his notes in a panic, the concern written all over his face. Cassie also revealed that other witnesses who had been too afraid to speak out were now coming forward after seeing Bieber's public support. "My phone hasn't stopped buzzing," she said, and people are finally ready to share what they saw. And then came the statement that broke Diddy completely. Cassie recalled a specific moment after she spoke to Bieber at an industry party when Diddy pulled her aside and said, "Even Justin knows what happens to people who cross me." With Bieber publicly supporting her, this threat suddenly carried a whole new weight. As Cassie continued, you could literally watch Diddy falling apart. With each new detail that connected to Bieber's statement, his composure seemed to crumble. He started fidgeting more, whispering urgently to his lawyer and looking even more panicked. The once confident mogul was disappearing right before everyone's eyes.
And weeks after the initial filing, Busby submitted an amended complaint naming Jay-Z as the celebrity who allegedly participated. They wanted copies of these videos for themselves. And I've talked to lawyers about this before. There's a big advantage to having the electronic video, the electronic evidence yourself, right? You don't have to always go over to the other office. You can view the materials on your own. It's a way to better prepare for your defense. And Sean Combs' lawyers argue that under the federal rules of criminal procedure, electronic data that is in the government's possession. Judge Subramanian denied the defense's motion to amend the protective order, but without prejudice, meaning this issue could be revisited. So Subramanian's order reads, quote, while the government objects to handing the videos over, they provide several options for a defendant to consider that would permit the defense to view the videos, access the information they're looking for, and even allow them to manipulate the video.
It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they loved me and, just turn their back on you in a second. So if she ever needs me, I'm gonna be here for her, but yeah, just protecting those moments because people take for granted encounters, and I just want to protect her, I don't want her to go through anything I went through. I don't wish that upon anybody. Yeah, if she ever needs me, I'm just a call away.
Do you realize how important your story is? Every time I have a conversation with someone who's been through this unique type of experience, I'm searching for some kind of truth that can help.
I commend you for going there and asking the tough questions and the things that people don't want to talk about, and they don't want to go there because it's revealing, and I want people to take a look at my story, and hopefully my words can make a difference.
Just when it seemed like things couldn't get any more intense, the prosecutor walked confidently to the center of the courtroom with a folder in hand. Your Honor, we'd like to present evidence that directly contradicts Mr. Combs' claim that Ms. Ventura fabricated these allegations. Then the prosecutor pulled out a tablet and connected it to the courtroom's display system. The screens around the room lit up with text messages between Justin Bieber and Cassie from 2017. The prosecutor zoomed in on one exchange that made several jurors lean in, clearly focused. Cassie had written, "I don't know what to do anymore. He monitors everything. He said if I talk to anyone, he'll make sure I never work again." Bieber's response was direct. "This isn't normal, Cass. What he's doing isn't okay. You need to talk to someone who can help." The moment those messages appeared on the screen, Diddy shot up from his chair. The sound of the chair scraping across the floor made everyone jump. His face turned bright red, eyes bulging. The cool and composed mogul was gone in an instant. His attorney grabbed his arm, whispering loud enough for those in the front rows to hear, "Sean, don't do this." But Diddy wasn't listening. In fact, he shoved his lawyer's hand away so forcefully that the man stumbled backward. "This is all lies!" Diddy shouted, pointing at Cassie. "You know damn well that's not what happened. Where's your loyalty after everything I did? For you." His voice got louder with each word. "You're making this up, both of you." The judge, not missing a beat, banged her gavel 3 times, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Mr. Combs, sit down immediately or I will have you removed." But Diddy wasn't done yet. 2 security officers moved swiftly toward the defense table. One positioned himself between Diddy and Cassie while the other approached from behind. Court reporters typed frantically, capturing every word of Diddy's unplanned meltdown. The jury watched in shock. One older woman in the back row covered her mouth with her hand. A younger man in the front row visibly leaned back physically, distancing himself from Diddy's outburst. "Your Honor, we need a recess," Diddy's lawyer shouted, trying to regain control. But Diddy was already pointing at the messages on the screen, yelling, "Those are fake. They fabricated those messages. This is a setup. Justin never said that." His voice echoed off the walls of the courtroom. This evidence was a devastating blow to Diddy's case. These messages from 5 years ago directly contradicted his claim that Cassie made up the allegations to get money or fame. Cassie had been confiding in Bieber about the exact same controlling behavior long before filing any lawsuit. The judge slammed her gavel again. "Remove the jury immediately." As the jurors filed out, many couldn't help but stare at Diddy, still standing and shouting. The security guards moved in, one on each side of him, and one said firmly, "Sir, you need to calm down now." For a moment, it seemed like Diddy might actually shove the officer too, but instead he fell silent, breathing heavily as the reality of the situation sank in. The damage was done. The controlled image that Diddy had built for years was now in tatters. The image Diddy had maintained for decades shattered right in front of everyone. As security officers stood guard on either side of him, the world witnessed a very different side of the music mogul, one that made Cassie's allegations suddenly feel all the more credible. With the jury safely out of the room, Judge Marlowe didn't hold back. Standing up behind the bench, she pointed directly at Diddy and delivered the ultimate smackdown of the century. Mr. Combs, this is a court of law, not a recording studio. You do not control what happens here. Her voice cut through the room like a knife. She wasn't done yet. One more outburst like that and I'll hold you in contempt. You'll spend the rest of this trial in a cell, only appearing when absolutely necessary. Then came a bombshell. The judge ordered a psychiatric evaluation to be done before the next day's proceedings. She then imposed strict new security protocols. 2 officers were to remain within arm's reach of Diddy at all times. His lawyers weren't even allowed to speak to him without a security presence. His phone privileges were completely revoked. Meanwhile, Diddy's legal team huddled together in the corner of the courtroom like a football team down by 40 points. The lead attorney kept shaking his head in disbelief, while another made frantic calls, and a third lawyer was desperately scribbling notes, occasionally looking up at Diddy with a face that screamed, "We're in serious trouble." Their body language told the whole story. They knew the case had just taken a massive hit. When the jury returned, the reactions were unmistakable. A middle-aged woman in the front row physically shifted her chair slightly away from the defense. At a table, an older man who had been diligently taking notes now sat with his arms crossed and his pen untouched. But the most telling sign was juror number 8, a young professional who had smiled at Diddy on the first day of the trial. Now she refused to look his way. On the other side, the prosecution team remained composed. The lead prosecutor organized her papers calmly, but you could sense the satisfaction in her demeanor as she occasionally glanced at Diddy. Her assistant even had to hide a small smile behind her hand at one point. Security remained tight for the rest of the day. 2 officers stood directly behind Diddy's chair, not pretending to be casual. Another stood by the door, hand resting on his belt, making it clear they weren't taking any chances with Diddy's behavior. Legal experts watching the case were barely able to contain their excitement. One former federal prosecutor whispered to the person next to him, "He just lost right there." A law professor who had come to observe was writing furiously in her notebook. A defense attorney from another high-profile case muttered, shaking, "His head, amateur hour!" Through all this, Cassie remained an immovable statue of composure. She sat with perfect posture, hands folded in her lap, expression neutral. When Diddy erupted, she didn't flinch. She didn't react. She didn't give him the satisfaction of showing any fear. The contrast between their behaviors was striking. Her calm control versus his complete loss of composure. As day 2 wrapped up, the difference from the morning was dramatic. Diddy had walked in like he owned the place. Designer suit, crisp smile, exuding confidence. But now he shuffled out with his tie loosened, surrounded by lawyers who looked like they'd aged. 10 years in just one afternoon. His eyes were on the floor, avoiding the reporters packed in the hallway. The most revealing moment came when Diddy's main lawyer put his hand on his client's back to guide him out. Diddy shrugged it off, just like he had in the morning, but this time it wasn't confidence, it was defeat. What we witnessed in that courtroom wasn't just about evidence, it was about character. Cassie stayed strong and calm, while Diddy fell apart. When Justin Bieber took Cassie's side, their true personalities were exposed under pressure. Let's be real, the jury saw Diddy lose control and threaten people in open court. That moment probably decided the case right there, no matter what evidence surfaces next. The biggest question now is, who else will speak out? Justin Bieber just broke the unspoken rule of protecting each other in the celebrity world. The door is wide open now, and more stars might step through it to speak against Diddy.